Morning, everyone. So, I really like to thank Transformance and Finalizer for arranging such an insightful event where we are having multiple CFOs sharing their insightful discussions and knowledge. So, it's really a well curated event. And thanks all of you for participating and making it more insightful. So, we'll start with the most important question. Like each one of you have only 2 to 3 seconds. So most important questions, like you can start. We'll start with Satyendra sir. Who is your favorite sportsman in Indian team? Sachin. Next.
I'm not too much into sports, but I think Virat Kohli.
Cricket team, you can say.
Virat Kohli is the most popular one, I guess.
Okay.
Virat. I'm still a fan of Kapil Dev.
Oh.
Kapil Dev.
No one said Bumrah. He's our brand ambassador. So, all right. We'll start with the discussion where the CFO's working capital playbook, how CFOs survive when the cash is tight. That's really a difficult situation that most of us might have seen at the time of COVID, right? Where the CC limits and everything were used till maximum, and lot of pressure was there on CFOs, CEOs, and every time. So it was a bit a difficult situation where this situation was there. So we'll start with Mr. Kapil. Yes. So how do you manage working capital during seasonal downturns or industry cycles?
So it is basically, it depends on how your working capital cycle is. For example, you have to foresight it before 3 months back. So we are into the textile business, and we know that during Diwali, Surat is totally, closed for 20 days. So how we will manage our cash flows? Because we want to pay our suppliers. We are not into unorganized markets, but our customer are unorganized. They can say कि भाई अभी payment नहीं है, अभी बाद में करेंगे. So we have to deal with such kind of situations. So there are 2-3 important things. First, 3 months back before only you have to plan कि अगर आपका inventory block हो रहा है तो उसको आप कैसे reduce कर रहे हो, या कौन से ऐसे डेटर्स हैं जिनसे आप अर्ली पैसा ले सकते हो, एंड देन हाउ कैन यू स्ट्रेच योर पेएबल्स, हाउ कैन यू नेगोशिएट वेल विथ योर क्रेडिटर्स so that they can extend the timeline. Or other than that, this is the primary thing. Business efficiency is the primary thing, and if it doesn't work in last moment, then you should have a flexibility in your working capital funding. For example, if you are taking LC, then you should have a sublimit as a CC. At times it works as a buffer. If you do not have a surplus cash flow, then you can open up CC and you can make the payments of LC. You can roll over your LC into BC, and there are multiple finance options at times. And other than that, you should always have a surplus buffer. Working capital cash flow should be parked in some investment side, so that liquid fund should be there for the company. So at the time of crisis, it can be used.
Great. I mean, it's all about creating a provision buffer and to have the second plan ready when the plan A is not working. You need to have shifted to plan B. So well said, sir. So moving ahead with Kishor sir, like how do you balance aggressive collections with maintaining customer relationships?
I think it's a very difficult question. I'm a sales guy. I said in the morning, I'm a sales guy. There are 2 levers which really drive this equation according to me. One is how important the customer is for you, how important you are for the customer, right? That these are 2 equations. First is, I'm talking about the relationship, right? And or it could be sometimes, when we look at a retail world, it's very transitionary. कल आपका Netflix subscription बंद हो गया, they're not going to wait, just cut the cord, right? So it depends upon the B2B relationship, the give and take. Now, before I even go to the aggression part, where I see the problem, root cause kahan aata hai, where the root cause really comes. and this is purely based on my experience I'm talking about. The wider experience could be much different industry-wise. The bigger differences come in terms of the upstream processes, right? Is their invoice quality correct? पहले delay क्यों हो रहा है वो हम बात देखते हैं. Invoice quality is incorrect. POs are not matching. PO line items are not matching. Right? That's one of the biggest part in terms of whenever you're getting your contracts done. This is one very clear part. Second is the and in typically B2B, everyone is hungry to get the numbers on books, right? I need my numbers on the books. Paperwork is not done, काम चालू कर दिया कभी कभी. These are common scenarios. Or LOI मिल गया, work has started. But the PO may take, a work order may take 6 weeks. PO may take another 6 weeks. And your 1 quarter has gone away. You've not got the payment. These are some upstream hygiene issues that organizations have to really think about, where they are landing up to. Then you can decide whether you need to have aggression on yourself or the client. Right? These are 2 fundamental factors that I believe will solve 80% of the problem. Now let's come, all these 2 problems are sorted out. Your work orders are done, your POs are done, now comes to the invoice generation, quality of the invoice is also done. Now, usually it's again very clear in terms of, when typically when we raise an invoice, as a SaaS provider, as a technology firm as well, we do very clear in terms of what is the deliverable, what is the outcome we are giving versus, what we are charging you. If there is a complete blueprint around it, you will again save the issues of aggression versus the collections. Now, the problems really arise because 80% of the problems goes in these 3 buckets. Now, of course, there are times where, the invoice is going out, you're not getting the payments. The client is very important to you. The way we are managing the issues is one, to avoid an aggression position itself. I always assume my clients are very important for me. I'll give an example of the reverse scenario also, but let me talk about the positive cases. For me, the approach is, from our learnings, that we upfront inform the customer, take the permissions and say, we are raising this invoice, this, get in concurrence, then push it. And this really happens, and because we are into a business of renewals as well, we at least, start pushing this communication upfront 3 months in advance, at least 2 to 3 months in advance, so there's no surprise, no time that they can't react. Okay, so these are some hygiene issues we take care of. And then comes the payment cycles. We have seen customers delaying it because it's gone into the queue. They are waiting for the approvals from the line managers or the consumer in the organization. Then it will go to the finance team. So there's a process needs to follow, and that may not have been done. So to avoid an aggression situation, we are always getting all the stakeholders lined up, saying that this is coming up, we need your approval, this is done, and so on. So now let's take a scenario where so this avoids me. Most of the aggression goes down because I know that if I'm getting delayed either because of my delays, okay, I'm okay with that, because if I have delayed something, I don't need to have an aggression. My relationship is more important to me. Now let's take another example where we have invoice time, service delivery time, the client stops responding. Big client, big logo. Well, it's a necessary relationship for me. I need to have that relationship. And we are in MSME. Of course, 45 days is a norm. It's a norm for us. We can always get aggressive at that point. But we have even got to a position where we start sending systematic reminders, and these systematic reminders are calibrated with tones, mild tone, a bit aggressive tone, threatening tone that, okay, if you don't pay, this will happen. We don't get personal at all. These are all system generated. There is no personal emotion or these things. Right? It's purely from a business perspective. And once this starts coming up, we see, it reduces the abrasion on the relationship. That minimizes it. There have been times, I had to pick up a phone and say that if you don't give, your services would be stopped. But as a good practice, we always give relationship an upper hand, right? If I am doing a favor for you today by giving you a little more time, maybe you have other constraints which I am not able to understand. Maybe this could be process constraint, this could be organization constraint. I would do, and I will also expect some favorable early payments in the future as well. So these are some scenarios we managed to minimize aggression. There has been a few rare instances where we have to say, if the Lakshman Rekha is crossed, that I'm not going to fund your business. I'm not going to fund your business because you've gone 45, 60, 90, 120. That is not how we work. Right. So, again, in a very polite way, we just say that whenever you're ready, you come back, but we are going to pause the business because, as in the previous session, for us it's very, very critical. The fund flow is important. I think in the previous meeting, we had a wonderful learning, right? For one negative, you're not going to keep on investing. So this is something, we are very cognizant about, and this has helped us. That's 2 cents from my side.
So thanks a lot for this answer. I'm sure this was very insightful, and he explained it step by step. I covered most of the important areas. But here, in our industry, the scenario gets completely opposite. It's like we have our presence in fabric and stitching also. So where we serve majority, and the department or the division is being handled by our joint managing director. So he handles VVIPs, film stars, politicians, and he meets each and every type of who's and who's of the country. So this is where the issue arises. The clothes get stitched, the delivery is being made, and the amount is pending, and you cannot aggressively collect it from them also. So what happens is, like, credit card ka payment hi hum credit card se kar rahe hain, aisa ho jata hai. So again they come back next time, they stitch those clothes, and again that old amount gets cleared, and the second verse keeps on generating. So this is where our problem is. We are still trying to solve it out. But yes, it all depends on relationships and everything, how you maintain it, and how you get rid of those collection despite of losing the customer. Because we currently operate in the retail industry where each and every customer matters. So well said. So coming back to Pankaj sir, what renegotiation tactics works best with suppliers during cash crunches?
In my opinion and my experience, the key lies with the trust. If like we are CFO of the company because the management has certain level of trust on us, and if we are able to develop same kind of rapport and trust with our vendors, even don't need to negotiate with the vendors. We just need to be truthful with them. Now, how to create that? That is the important thing. See, when your cash flows are okay and your business is running smoothly, don't delay the payment of your vendors. Pay as per your commitment, pay as per your committed due date. Don't wait for the follow-ups from their side. So that will create the rep of your company and rep of yourself as a finance head of that company. One fine day, if you get to know that there is a cash crunch going to happen, or my liquidity is shrinking and I need immediate some support, you can just need to make a call to that key vendors And if you ask them to support it, they would definitely agree. So in summary, I can say it's trust building thing rather than negotiations.
Very true. Like well said. Also, like it's all about trust. Like when you are having surplus or any point of time, you should not delay the payments. In fact, you can make payment bit early. So this wins trust a lot, and ultimately it gets into a good sort of long-term relationship with them. So whenever even in our retail store also, whenever any rent escalation, rent is the biggest expenditure that we incur in a retail store. So whenever any rent escalation or any renewal of agreement or anything takes place, there is a clause of rent escalation of around 12 to 15%. So there, this relationship comes into picture where we can negotiate with the landlord. Instead of we can make requests, the retail is like there is something like that, the growth rate is being subdued or it's slow. Then instead of escalating by 15%, we can always request of around 10 to 11%, 10 to 12%, because it is a long-term relationship. And since there has been no default in payments, he also gets agree very easily. So these are the very small things, but it is very much necessary in today's business. So going back to Snehal sir, how do you adjust inventory levels without risking shortages in uncertain times?
Good evening, rather good afternoon. Right. So see, we are in plastic industry. So for us, having inventory, sufficient inventory, especially to meet our customers, is one. Second thing is that depend on the supplier, because our suppliers are used oil companies, right? At that time also, we how they are taking that shutdown, and what will be their strategy of the next grade of the material, that is also important. Third is that the global market, that what are the prices going on, especially the PP. All this put together, and with the experience of because almost every year, all 12 months will be like that only. We know that means what will be the demand in the May or what will be the demand in July. So accordingly, we adjust our procurement cycle that way. That means that normally we are never short of. Yeah, sudden some contract or government contract comes into picture. At that time we procure it. Otherwise, is always like that. That means we have sufficient material by planning very in advance. Like that.
Right. So in managing inventory is most important, especially ultimately it results into discounting and everything. Your balance sheet gets heavy. Stock gets invested. Ultimately, it's a cash that is getting invested whenever the inventory is piled up. So I'm sure it has to be maintained in a very proper way. So Saurav sir, how does automation or AI machine learning improve working capital forecasting and management?
So if you look at a CFO, I think in my perspective, CFO is a decision maker, makes some of the most important decisions. And to make those decisions, he needs to have data, insights, and intelligence at his disposal, right? So I'll answer this question from the perspective of data, insights, and intelligence. Yes, most CFOs will have access to great MIS dashboards where they're getting information, but that is now kind of changing. Why? Because there is some set of decisions which are regular decisions made in the day-to-day, operations, for which an MIS, a dashboard might be sufficient. But then every now and then there is a decision that needs to be made for which, पूरी finance team lag jati hai, data निकालने में, 4 systems से reconcile करने में, and mistakes hoti hain, data reconcile nahi hota. Because again, those decisions are ad hoc, which used to happen, let's say, once in 6 months, and now probably the operating scenario is such that you'll need that kind of data once probably in 2 weeks, right? More frequently. So there's a shift not away from dashboards and MIS, but there's a shift towards more, AI conversational based, UI, where a CFO can ask questions because the data lake is already there, right? In the ERP system, in the finance system, all the data is already residing. But how do CFOs get access to that information without reaching out to someone in the accounts team to compile information, compile data, right? So that's one big area where, AI is playing a big role. The other is, you talked about forecasting, right? It means today, if you look at traditional forecasting, it's very linear in nature. 20% se grow kar raha hai, okay, 20% se grow karega. You account for some amount of seasonality. But there are multiple factors that play a role when, you're forecasting your cash flows. there are these risks of tariffs, there are geopolitical conditions, they're changing demand patterns. Demand patterns across the country keeps changing, right? So how do you account for all of that when you are doing your forecasting, right? So machine learning models are able to now accommodate, these variables and factors much better into your entire forecasting analysis than, the traditional forecasting approaches, right? Plus, of course, I come from a risk background. So early warning indicators to CFOs for me is, I think, very critical, right? Do you react, or do you have mechanisms to understand where things are going wrong and someone flags that for you, right? Today is ad hoc. अगर accounting team में किसी ने कुछ पकड़ लिया, आपके पास ले आए, great. But अगर नहीं पकड़ पाए तो नहीं पकड़ पाए. There's no mechanism for that, right? So again, AI-based, algorithms are now helping predict, where things could be going wrong, where there is an investigation required. No action might be required, but at least an investigation required, right? So I think AI is transforming the decision-making process, where a lot of insights and intelligence is being made available to the CFO to make, decisions in this, I think VUCA is the word, right? VUCA world, where things just keep changing. It's so dramatic. Means just the tariffs means you don't know, I hope there's no American here, but you don't know, Donald Trump किस bed की side से उठेगा और क्या करेगा, right? So all of that you can account for when you are, building some of these capabilities, where stress testing is something that you can kind of do.
Very well said. Like, data is the new fuel, and I'm sure AI and everything is very important to predict that there is. So technology has to be adopted. There is no other option, and to have that process behind our system helps us a lot. So going back to Mr. Kapil, what strategies help maintain liquidity in fluctuating revenue scenarios?
So according to me, it all depends on maintaining cash flow proactively for next 4 months. If you maintain the cash flow for the 4 months, and it depends, on some fine day you are having a clearing of 10 crores, say, for example, but you have a payment of 20 CR. So at that point of time, you are not going to go to search out for the 10 crores. So if you have a well projected cash flow and then seeing it on daily basis or a weekly basis, then you can find out a way under fluctuating scenarios. So it may be possible that you have an average cash inflow of 7 to 8 crores, depending on your average revenue. And on some day, the cash outflow is 5 CR. Then you can accumulate that 2 CR and sideways that 2 CR, so that it can be used whenever there is a fluctuating scenario and whenever there is a cash flow crunch.
So it's all about like maintaining an emergency fund so that you can use it as and when such type of scenario occurs. So Kishor sir, over to you. How do finance teams collaborate with sales, procurement, and operations to optimize working capital?
Well, one of the again, before I go to how to optimize, one of the fundamental pillars any organization, before even they think about optimization, is about, is my procure to payment process well defined? Okay, I'll give one example here before I go to the depth of that answer. For one of the QSRs, 1,000 plus stores, we could see a chaos. The chaos was rent escalation. 1,000 plus stores is not easy to manage, right? You are across India. Rent escalation was not going through procurement. Marketing budgets, sudden promotions that were not being provisions, being decided by a vertical head, regional head, having powers, not going through the process, overriding it. Now these are some challenges which I am seeing, where people become bigger than the processes. That will lead to fundamental chaos in a long term. Right now, if you solve that as as a dharma in your company. Fundamentally, you make it as a mandatory policy, right from the promoter to the at least 99%. You may have certain exceptions that everywhere, but as a process, if you are able to manage largely your procure to pay process, right? What does it mean? You have a well-defined governance. You have an established process how the from the budget to requirements to negotiation to PO and to payment, all is well defined, right? Then what really matters is um, executing that, having a better collaboration between these teams in terms of how the organization should work together now. Now, earlier it was a fragmented teams. Now the teams have come together. That brings, much stronger synergies in terms of, helping with the optimizing the fund flow and operational expenses. The procurement teams are also able to advise, how they see in the market the negotiations are working. They could also look at available vendors in the market who could give you an options, right? So and the operational teams can also plan better, right? Because if you are planning better, you should not have a large operational constraints from a fund flow perspective. So this is very, very fundamentally clear. We have seen large organizations which struggle. We have also seen large organizations which run extremely smooth, which means, if I don't get a PO, right, the finance team will come and say, Kishor, there is no PO, so how can you ask me for payment? It's very clear, right? So, and there are organizations that just take the invoice and process it. So if you build this process, build a communication, you'll be able to leverage the synergies and bring better optimization.
Great, sir. Great. Very insightful. So, question to Pankaj sir, very quickly. What are the major misconceptions people have about liquidity?
First and foremost, people think that net profit is their liquidity. So
PAT is everyone's PAT.
yeah, that is everyone's pet. So that is the one thing I usually see. Second thing, the people think the liquidity problem is the finance problem. No one else in the company need to do anything about that. Finance wala dekh lega. So it is not like that. See, liquidity crunch is not the cause. It's the outcome of inappropriately managed inventory, inappropriately managed AR, and other capex and all. Improperly drafted your M&A agreements and all. So it is a result of that. And to take care of the liquidity, it should be a complete teamwork across all the departments and division. So that is the second major misconception I see.
Very well said. PAT is not liquidity. Very true. So quickly to Snell sir, like what technology helps to improve inventory turns and reducing blockages?
So first is this ERP. It's very important to use it. Having ERP and using it that's separate. Like especially for those companies are just coming out of that Tally to ERP. So it's very important. That means how you use your ERP. Second thing, what data you feed in, and then automatically will give you a proper perspective of what exactly you want to do and how you can get it done. The first is second thing now coming to the AI. But AI is very new for most of the company. How to use also is right now people are just using it for the mail drafting. So that's not the actually now people will start using, or especially when we have started using that from the budgeting exercise till actual to comparison with the actual. At that time, if that is properly done, then you are using it technology properly, and what outcome or what means exactly result you want from the technology that you are derived.
Yes, so it's all about garbage in and garbage out. And before we implement AI or any technology, it is very important that we sanitize those data, make them proper, and then we go through these AI and technology based themes. So yes.
Yeah, I would just like to add because we have seen many technology projects and there's always a kind of a ratio. There is a ratio, not from a finance perspective, but overall technology perspective. People say, globally, I'm talking about, not about India now. 7 out of 10 projects fail on technology front. 7 out of 10 projects, or they deliver very suboptimal results. आपने सोचा कुछ था, बन कुछ गया. Okay. Now there are a few best practices or learnings from those things. One is especially on the finance front. I had one example where a CFO was thinking. This is the worst example, rather, I would say. A CFO was thinking about moving, and they had actually started migrating from Tally to SAP. Effectively, in the design phase, they have just lifted and shifted the Tally to an extent of 80-90% and moving to SAP. They thought that once we move the data from Tally to SAP, they will start refactoring SAP. Now that's a big blunder, right? So whenever you're building a transformation, you need to bring all the stakeholders in line in terms of the effective cycle chain, building a blueprint, user experience, data refactoring. Usually transformation project will not get over in 3 months. So these kind of shortcuts typically lead to expectation mismatch. So spending a long time. I have some very positive results from my customers where the project was 3 months, 4 months, but they spent equal amount of time blueprinting that with me, that how my inflow is going to come, what rules are going to be put in place, what kind of control checks we will have, what kind of outputs we'll design. Spending time on any project, especially technology, and getting nowadays, CFOs are very hands-on on every new technology which we are seeing. Start spending time. This will really help you as well. Thanks.
Very true, sir. Saurav, sir, last question. What is the importance of data transparency in these days?
So I think more than transparency, it's data availability which is just challenge, right? So transparency is all about the intent. Someone wants to share data, information or not, but availability is a function of what kind of systems, what kind of processes you have kind of put in place. And I think transparency is a very individual company CFO based intent, but availability is what I see as a big challenge, right? We've seen cases where sales का data कुछ कहता है, finance का data कुछ और कहता है. We've seen cases where board को presentation जा रही है, sales and marketing में एक number है, finance की slide में दूसरा number है, right? So I think the ability to kind of talk cross-functionally, right, becomes very important, right? The ability for a CFO to know कि sales team क्या सोच रही है, क्या predict कर रही है, वो मेरे systems में है या नहीं है. That becomes very important, the availability of that information, right? And once you start making sure that, information is cross-functionally available, in fact, even within teams, I have seen teams where CFO doesn't have enough information, but uski team ke paas information hai, right? And all of these things are a function of how a system, how a, rhythm has been kind of, designed. And once you start fixing all of that, you will see a lot of ट्रांसपेरेंसी all coming in. तो जिसको हम ट्रांसपेरेंसी बोलते हैं कि CFO यार इन्फॉर्मेशन ही शेयर नहीं करता, is not actually transparency, is actually availability, right? कि he just does not have the systems or the processes to make that information kind of available to you. And once you do that, the collaborations are very good. The forecasting becomes much more streamlined. The trust factor goes up significantly, right? And I think I was talking to a couple of CFOs here. My experience of dealing with CFOs in US and UK is more around they are finance professionals. They take care of the finance function. India mein CFO is actually a CEO, right? Double hatting on almost all fronts. Kahin pe bhi kuch bhi problem ho rahi hoti hai, it's the CFO who kind of gets called in every single time. So given the strategic nature of that function, I think data, information, and insights become very, very critical at the hand of a CFO to be able to make the right decisions. And I think that's where most of CFO functions should start heading.
Awesome. This is very practical. It always happens when we sit with operations guy. He talks about the gross sales. We sit with net sales. फिर वो बोलेगा तुम्हारा सेल गलत है, हाँ तुम्हारा गलत है, वो GST तो गिनते ही नहीं है. So they always talk about the gross realization value. So this is all about differences that takes place. So very quickly, let's have a rapid fire where you all are finance leaders, so must be investing in everything. Which is your favorite, sir? Gold or silver?
Gold.
Next.
Platinum probably. Gold and
Platinum.
silver.
That's a new asset class.
डाइवर्सिफाइड पोर्टफोलियो होना चाहिए.
It's not on the list. Gold or silver?
आज के दिन में तो कोई नहीं.
Yes, sir.
It's gold because it says stability.
Right. Yes, sir.
Gold because hopefully it may become a new backup for fiat.
So इस बार I think silver को gold medal मिला है, gold को silver medal मिला है. So this is what is happening since last 8 to 12 months. So yes, we are done with the questions and we are open to the forum if anyone has any questions or they can ask with the panel. Awesome, we are perfect. Anyone, like if you have any questions, we still have 2-3 minutes. Yes, sir, please. Is I think replying to Donald Trump.
Yeah. See, the most challenging part CFO does or any organization does is planning for the unplanned things. Theoretically, it is not possible because yes, I am coming to that. You will have to see your beta, your industry beta, your company's beta, and based on that, you have to make the provisions in your liquidity. What liquidity is? Liquidity is your margin of errors. No matter how brilliantly or how effectively you make your budgeting and everything, there would be some or other assumptions will go wrong because of some wrong calculations or because of some external factors which you cannot predict precisely. See, if would have been predict the future precisely, we would not be sitting here. हम आराम से शेयर मार्केट में फ्यूचर्स कर रहे होते 9 to 3:30, तो हमको जरूरत नहीं थी. तो नो वन कैन predict the future. It is just based on the beta calculation and the fluctuation in the industry and how good, how effectively you can keep the margin of errors, and that is your liquidity. So that is the thing. Cannot be a clear-cut formula for that. It is all about your experience, your instincts, your knowledge, what is happening across the globe, and how this changing scenario. And like in earlier session, we had discussed stress test. So these are multiple factors you have to take care into consideration for making your, planning and everything.
Right.
Or simple, we can ask US citizens to vote more consciously.
I'll just share an example. So we were talking to the chief risk officer of Hindalco right after the tariffs were kind of imposed. And again, right, as Sir said, there is no formula, there is no Excel sheet, there is no stress testing that could prepare you for a situation like this. But if you have the right processes in place, so for instance, they had this provision of a war room that in case something happens, these are the 7 dedicated individuals who will come into the war room, discussions will happen. They had very good relationship with their bankers, consultants, right? So everyone was called into that war room to kind of, provide an opinion in terms of what should be done, right? So I think the ability to kind of structure the right set of individuals who can come into a war room, have a discussion and find solutions is actually a core resilience, capacity that most companies have.
Okay, we're done with the time, but final last rapid fire. Your favorite food?
Pizza.
Oh, I just got introduced to dal dhokli and I love it.
Dal chapati.
Dal chapati.
बाजरे की रोटी.
Yes, sir. Dal chawal.
So it's like, come on.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you.